Welcome to the Pharos Fit Podcast, where we help you to explore your capacity to move better, push further, and achieve your limitless potential through fitness, nutrition, recovery, and lifestyle.
I think people care too much about lifting weights and not enough about conditioning.
Yeah. Well,
and I recognize conditioning is harder, and I recognize that this is going to be predictable, right? Like, the skinny guy wants me to run more. Sure, I know that's a big shocker, but here's the thing. I've found that the biggest differential, the thing that people really need that's going to make them better at life, the thing that's going to be the least contrived thing that we can put into the gym that makes life easier, is conditioning.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Pharos Fit Podcast. Good to be back with you guys. I'm here today with Noah, David.
Hi everybody.
Hey Noah.
Happy to be here.
And Brandon. Hey Brandon.
What's going on, guys? Good to be back.
How you doing?
Better. Shoulders feeling great. So, man, that's something to be excited and happy about.
He's a whole new man.
Yep.
Now the title for this podcast is "Recover from Life." We're going to start with that. We're going to come full circle and we'll finish with that. But I just want to put that, guys, in your that sentence in your head to start with. Recover from life. That's what me and Noah are going to be kind of talking about in a very roundabout kind of way. The main kind of like topic of the podcast is programming, which me and Noah love to geek out about. Sometimes
it's a massive surprise to the audience. Yeah.
Sometimes of a day we will put on some Reo Speedwagon and we'll just like talk about programming endlessly, gaze into each other's eyes and just talk about programming. It's a beautiful thing. Now Noah, I kind of want to start off with this because of course the CrossFit Games has just happened. I know you're a big CrossFit nerd.
Who isn't?
How did you find it? What did you think? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think right out of the bat, or off the bat, they did a great job of holding a competition during COVID.
Right.
They gave us what we wanted.
Yeah, it was fun to see.
It was cool to just see organized sports. The CrossFit Games this year took part in two halves. So unlike in the past where it's been a massive weekend event, 13 events, spectators, in and out of the ocean, all kinds of things, this year it was a very pared down version held at the CrossFit Ranch, a property that's owned by a guy named Dave Castro in Northern California. To get there, you needed to get through an online qualifying. We saw lots of different kinds of events. Obviously, it was only a smaller format. We saw 5 men and 5 women, no teams, duking it out. Big surprise, the folks that have been dominant in the past continued to be dominant. But I think my biggest takeaway was how much running has become a priority in CrossFit.
Yeah, it was there a lot, yeah.
We saw running up a hill, running like a trail run, all kinds of functionality on 2 feet.
And this kind of leads me into my next point. And Brandon, you're going to enjoy this. You know what I really liked about it this year? It was like a return to basics. Like what made CrossFit great in the beginning.
Absolutely. Came
around again. So it was just simple stuff. It was just simple hard work, grinder type stuff. So yeah, there was barbells. There was a ton of running. There was like carrying sacks. Good old fashioned kind of grunt work workouts that were just fun to watch. I think that the smaller contestants actually made it better because it was a lot easier to see like who was in front and who was, the order of contestants and that kind of stuff. And it wasn't like highly complex. And we've talked about this a lot when you talk about relatability. Like if something becomes too technical and your audience kind of loses like unless you're a real CrossFit nerd, like if you can't appreciate how hard something is, it's really hard to relate to it.
It's fundamentally meaningless.
It's fundamentally meaningless.
I get that this is cool, but I have no barometer for how cool it is.
But when you see 2 jacked people running head to head in a race,
right,
and you know who's in front, it becomes a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I think maybe the best way we can put it is that this year we saw programming that was the least contrived tests of fitness that we could find.
Yes, it was more of a true test of fitness.
Right, it's not very sports specific. It was just, can you get this heavy thing from this place to that place? Who can do it first?
Yes.
Can you move a heavy object? Can you kick up upside down and run? Like, can you get in and out of a pool fast? All of these things that I think a lot of us can relate to really easily. And I think the joke that I always come back to, I think it was like Bill Murray said something about the Olympics. And that his point was like, I think at the Olympics, especially for the track events, there should be a 9th lane around the track. And that 9th lane should have a regular dude who's like an IT professional. And like when the gun goes off, you see 8 of the best athletes you've ever seen in your life, and then a regular guy who's like pretty good at running. But he also has a beer on the weekends, and you're gonna watch that guy get pummeled even by the worst person at the Olympics. And I think that helps us have a bit of a yardstick for just how good you have to be just to be a crappy elite athlete.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And I think so at the CrossFit Games, I think maybe in the future they might include, a 6th lane for just an average guy. Like maybe we could just send like, I'd go. Yeah, I will be like the extremely average CrossFitter who I guess compared to any other guy in a Trader Joe's is like a relatively fit individual. And then you can just watch me just get walloped by even the worst guy at the CrossFit Games.
So I think like even though they had to like change things, forced them to change, basically, it actually ended up being better in ways, I thought, than before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
less grandiose, but more fun to watch, and like a better test of fitness. And I like the ranch thing. I think it's cool and it's rustic, and it feels like the old days when you just used to do it like.
Of course you love the ranch
run
one.
around a fucking field.
Yeah, exactly. Of course you love the one on the ranch.
Yeah, of course.
But I think it also maybe brings us back to the idea that the ultimate goal of fitness should be to just make life easier.
Right.
And if sport looks more like the things you do in life, I think it closes that gap.
It becomes more appealing for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think people relate to it a lot more.
And I feel like that's one of the things that got me really excited about CrossFit in the very beginning.
Yes.
It was that functionality, the capacity to really be pretty good at everything makes it so that when you're out in life, I don't know, maybe your buddy asks you to go play pickup soccer or basketball. Maybe you're not the best guy out there, but you're decent. Yeah. Because you're just good at life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it really was like, how does this stuff in the gym transfer to real life? How do I get better at playing with my kids? How do I get better at like carrying shit and all that? And in the beginning, like CrossFit felt like that. And I think at a certain point, it gets so far away from that initial premise because obviously things get more technical, that you're constantly looking for new things to do. So you get further away from where you started. And, I do think at a certain point, it did lose somewhat of its, functional essence of where it started. So I think this was.
I think we lost
back home, and
we lost the magic.
We lost the magic.
Yeah, I think the idea that CrossFit should be constantly varied maybe ran off with us a little bit, and it was constantly varied to the point that it was constantly chaotic.
Tricks. Yeah,
right. Yeah. And I do think that the capacity that an athlete has to be athletic upside down, I think that's really important. Whether you can do an obstacle course blindfolded backwards while actively getting punched in the stomach, I don't know if that's relevant, right? Like, good should be athletic within reason,
right?
And going back to that point, that it should be the least contrived possible test of fitness.
Yes, I agree. Now I have an idea. Bear with me on this one.
Okay, let's go.
Matt Fraser takes a year off. He's too good. Maybe Tia takes a year off. Maybe not, because she's won 4 and Matt's won 5.
Now, okay. We're gonna pause for 1 second and just say for anybody who has a life and doesn't realize, Matt Fraser and Tia Claire Toomey. Matt's from the U.S., Tia's from Australia. They are the reigning fittest people on earth and have been for the last handful of years. It's made it so that CrossFit is really a game for second place.
Exactly. So
these two people, you're talking about Matt Fraser, the undisputed fittest man on earth.
Yeah, because I don't know who these people are. So this is all good news for me.
All right, so Matt Fraser, big hairy guy from Vermont, former mechanical engineer, pound for pound, the baddest dude to ever not shave his chest.
Right. So him.
Great.
Who, of course, before Matt Fraser, it was really all about Rich Froning for a number of years. But I think we can all agree that Matt has way surpassed Rich Froning as an athlete anyway. Now, we kind of talked about this earlier. If you just have two people that always win something and it stops being competitive, it kind of takes away the interest a little bit, because it kind of gets a little bit dull. You know who's going to win, and like you said,
right?
It just becomes a race for second place, and really, who cares about second place? So
sure.
I think
they
almost make Matt Fraser. They're gonna have to offer him money to do it, probably, because he's probably getting paid for his sponsors for a win.
Okay, so Matt gets cut a check.
Let's say he gets cut a check. Says, "Look, we don't want you to compete this year. Here's a check on the quiet."
Mm-hmm.
He takes a year off. Someone else comes in. That Medeiros guy, maybe the guy with the mullet.
Great.
Love that guy.
The unofficial winner of the CrossFit Games is that mullet. Sure.
Is that mullet? So he comes in. He wins. And then the next year, the big story is the comeback story of Matt Fraser versus Medeiros, or Matt Fraser versus whoever it is. That way, you have this kind of you have a narrative, you have a story. Because right now, the story is Matt and Tia are going to win. Who's going to come second? That's the story. No one cares.
So you
have the comeback story.
You effectively reset the clock. You give everybody one more year to try to catch up to his level while he like drinks Mai Tais in a hot tub. Yes. And he comes back and he eats them all alive.
Yes, I mean, he still will, but that will be a more interesting narrative.
No, absolutely. And it also gives us fitness nerds the chance to see who's the best of the rest. Like, amongst all of the regular human beings, who's the actual fittest.
Right.
So it's like no one else close at all in the competitions? Like, he blows and she blows them out,
let's put it this way. So there were... Ooh, I might get this wrong. Fact check me here. I think there were like 10 or 13 events. I think there were 13 events this past weekend. Matt won effectively all of them. So that doesn't mean that he just finished as at the average placement across all of those events was the best. He beat everybody. So the margin between first and second was so big that he basically could have just shown up to the last day of competition. He could have competed all weekend and shown up on Sunday in his pajamas and didn't even cross the finish line and still would have won. Like, it wasn't even close. Same deal on the women's side. Such a dominant performance, such a bulletproof game across all modalities, time domains, and all kinds of nerdy stuff that it really is a race for second place. So if you take those guys out, I actually think it makes it fun. So now you actually don't know who's going to win the race before the gun goes off. And so you preserve the magic of like what makes sport exciting.
But is it just because they're two ridiculous individuals, or they do something different training wise, or just,
That's
a good question. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, this is like we're going to talk more about this, but is it the program? Is it the mindset? Is it genetics? There's all these things that come into it, and it's been incredible to see. I mean, they've both always been great athletes, but there was a point, and you'll be able to tell me the year, Noah, where I think Tia finished second, and did Matt finish second the same year? Or was that the year after?
That's the first year that Matt won.
The first year that Matt won, Tia came second, and then Matt hasn't lost since. And Tia has won every time since.
So
and once they
that year was 2015.
So since 2015, since they started winning, they've just like separated from the herd, like at an exponential level. And it's been, how are they doing it? Like, because I don't believe I believe all of these top level CrossFitters are on a similar program. I mean, of course, there's going to be slight nuances here and there, but they're all going to be on a similar program in terms of the amount they lift, the amount of cardio they do, like these technical practices.
I think that's a really good point. I think maybe we could even say that for all elite athletes within a given sport, the actual variation in what their training looks like from one individual to the other is negligible.
Right.
They're all basically doing the same stuff.
Right. So how are they getting so good, Brendan?
I don't know, because I think about the same way when I played professional sports and someone comes to you and I want to be a professional. It's like, all right, there's not much different training. Like you said, another point, you see these professional basketball players going to different trainings, pretty much close to the same, but, are they switching up their diet? How much is that going to actually separate them and give them an advantage to another athlete?
Sure.
How much?
Well, there is also the thing of like, so you saw the Michael Jordan documentary, right? It's like, sure. Everyone's doing the same training, but he's doing the extra stuff. Like, he's putting in the hours after training to just keep practicing. He's living his life like dedicated to this one single-minded thing of winning. And maybe it's the same here. Maybe Matt and Tia do everything they can just to be in a winning mindset. They don't doubt themselves. They just fucking grind at it.
Yeah,
maybe.
The blindness definitely helps, Like, if I'm playing on a sports field or competing at all, like, I don't care who you are, what you look like, where we're going against. I'm going to beat you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's like... Again, like I said, the mindset of training. Michael Jordan just did that. He was just nuts. It was just like you said, my life goal is to be a competitor. I don't want anybody to touch me or beat me in anything and even come close. So,
but what's incredible is, like, Michael Jordan was incredibly skillful at this one sport that he did, right? Basketball. Like, he could fucking do everything on the basketball court. These guys are better than everyone else at everything.
Yeah.
Like, how is that?
I think it's the head game.
Yeah.
I think that the two of them have managed to drill down on this idea that they are the best in the world, and they reverse engineer all of their practices from there. The thinking being, if I am the best in the world, and so the best in the world wouldn't be taking a rest day. The best in the world isn't going to have that beer. The best in the world is going to go to bed at 8:30 and wake up at 8:30 clapping their hands and ready to crush a barbell. I think it's the same thing that could happen across lifestyle. What you eat, how you rest, how you work out, even in a workout. Like, if I'm the best in the world is not resting right now. The best in the world isn't breaking up this set of thrusters. Best in the world is going to stay on these rings and do it all unbroken. And I think that once Matt won, I feel like you could almost see a switch in his head. Right. He was so mad that he was losing. And once he won, he realized how much he liked winning and how good it feels to be the best in the world at anything, but especially at something like CrossFit that is so quantifiable. Like, there's no Jordan versus LeBron. It's like, I finished faster, my bar was heavier, I beat you fair and square.
Right.
And I think he liked that so much that he wanted to be the best in the world, and he's going to continue to be the best in the world. And so I think the whole beauty to the Matt Fraser game is that he is convinced himself that he is the best, and so that everything he does comes from that place.
I think therefore I am. I think I'm the best, therefore
I will become the best.
Yeah, the laser focus consistency, like you said, just to have it, to be on it all the time, is the difference maker. That you're never going to break.
We saw that change in Tia as well. That the year when she was like doubtful on camera, and then she talked about later on how she like watched it back and she hated the way that she presented herself. Yeah, and then she
2015. Watch the documentary. Cameras follow her around, and she doesn't even want to sign autographs because she's self-conscious that if she underperforms, people won't be happy that she signed their shirt. Right. And then the next year she comes back, like you said, a little embarrassed about that mindset, but now feeling like she's like a tiger in a cage. Right. Like she feels, frankly, like a grown-ass person ready to do her business. Yeah. Like she's on that competition floor to show all those girls that they're working out with her and not the other way around.
I remember like watching that documentary and then seeing her at the Olympics when she won gold, right?
She went to the Olympics. So 2016, she went to the CrossFit Games, and then a few weeks later she packed her bags and she went to Rio. I think even the year previous, I think she medaled at the Commonwealth Games.
Right.
I'm not sure. Right. I can't remember her Rio performance off the top of my head, but just the sheer fact that she could perform at an elite level as a CrossFitter, where she's expected to do a number of things and then be able to be an Olympian representing the whole country of Australia.
Well,
it's like
more than her like even winning the medal, like just watching her come out and like the look on her face and how like intense she was, and then the way she executed it was like, oh my god, it was like on fire. It was incredible.
Absolutely,
she was jacked.
Like absolutely, the switch was flipped. She looked dominant.
She was menacing.
So I think maybe circling back to this idea of programming, I don't think it was the programming. I think at the highest level, all of the programming is the same. I think the greatest adaptation that we have to consider here is that which happens between the ears.
Yeah, I agree. Now I have another question for you. Brendan. Fraser is the best CrossFit athlete of all time.
Okay.
Froning is the most popular CrossFit athlete of all time, I would argue. Why would you think that is?
And this is the other guy who used to be the best.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's probably just got that age with him, you know. He's been with it, you know. You can relatable guy that's been with the program forever.
Ooh, that's a good point.
You know, the guy that's just like, oh, that's CrossFit right there. It's a pioneer. Like you think CrossFit, you think this guy. Yeah, you got this guy who's paving the way and just taking everything over now. But it's like, oh man, that's CrossFit. Use name recognition, brand recognition.
Interesting.
That guy. And I never seen this, and I don't know this person, but
no, I think this is a well-made point.
Because I was going to say, it's because Rich Froning looks like an all-American action hero. He looks like all men want to look like.
But what about that chest hair on the new guy?
That's the point here. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Matt is the Vermonster.
And here's the debate.
All he cares about is how well he can move the barbell. He doesn't care whether you like his chest hair or not. That's not where his emphasis is. Rich has been manscaped for the last 15 years.
Yeah, he's got great pecs.
And you can't deny he looks like a male model, but he also happens to move like an elite athlete.
Right.
He's the whole package.
He had that dream package.
He had the big package. Sure.
Yeah.
But I think the relatability too, I think that's a really good point. This whole killer instinct, ice water in your veins, you're going to win at all costs thing also means that you're not going to make a lot of friends along the way. And the thing that always I think was so heartening, especially at the beginning where CrossFit was still interesting to people and still novel, Rich was like the football player. He was like the captain of the football team. He got the high fives and the low fives. He was hanging out with his buddies. He always had like a piece of cold pizza hanging out of his face. Like he didn't really seem to care. He just wanted to have fun. Right. And you wanted to have fun with him.
Yeah.
Matt is an assassin. And so I think maybe if there's a divergence there, the reason why like Mr. Rich Froning Jr. is always going to be everybody's favorite is because he's an extremely likable guy and he wants to be your friend.
Right.
And Matt wants to win.
Right. Yeah, and then that brings us into the interesting argument between like aesthetics and performance, because when you're talking about the image of athletes and what I mean, sport is a business at the end of the day, and sport needs to sell, sport needs to make money. And someone like Rich Froning comes along and he can make a sport a lot of money because, like I said, he looks like people want to look like, and he does all this cool stuff, and you're like, my God, this is people are drawn to him. And we've always kind of had this ongoing battle between not even battle, but this difference between like bodybuilding and CrossFit and functional fitness versus like aesthetic fitness and like training to look good versus training to perform and that kind of thing. And like Rich Froning and Dan Bailey, those guys, like they were able to like appeal to both, whereas people like Matt, like not so much. Like he'll appeal to like performance-driven people and athletes, and people care about how much weight you can shift. But when you're talking about purely physical appearance, when you look at someone like on Instagram or whatever it is, like someone like Froning is a more appealing physique, and therefore will sell more product or
absolutely
that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I think Froning has even said it. Like he's like, as soon as I retire, like I'm just gonna go to the gym and look great.
Right.
I think he's aware of it too.
Right. Oh yeah, he must be.
Which is, I think, a really hilarious point, that these guys that like train their knuckles bloody also have to stomach the reality that there's like a couple thousand dudes on Instagram that look a lot better than they do. Right. As in, like, if you go to the CrossFit Games and like you look at the guys that are on the top 5, and then you take 5 people out of the stands, like just spectators who are just CrossFit meatheads, and ask them to take off take off their shirts, you couldn't tell the difference. Like they all look pretty much the same.
Right.
So it's very curious. The athletes don't really look like athletes.
Right.
I guess maybe the difference isn't that big. It's not that noticeable. The guys that move like superheroes don't necessarily look like superheroes.
Right. Because it's not their job to look good.
Yeah, it's their job to be good. Yeah.
It's their job to be good.
Right.
Yeah. But it's it's something, and when we're kind of coming back to Pharos here, when we program at Pharos, of course, we're very aware of those two things, because most people want both, right? If we're honest with ourselves, most people want to look better, and they want to feel better and perform better. They want to move well, they want mobility, and they want to do great things and look good while they're doing it.
Absolutely.
So we have to program here with all those elements in mind. So whether it was the build program or the compete program to some degree, or the new hybrid programming, it's always been that marriage between, people at the end of the day, most people want to lose some fat, gain a little bit of muscle, but, feel good and
perform well.
And perform well.
Sure.
So it's that always, you're always kind of like wrestling between those two, not extremes, but those two elements. And it's
we have to sit sort of squarely in the spectrum. Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm really proud of that Pharos has implemented is a really elegant marriage of sort of two schools of thought. Maybe we'll define nerdy terms here and go from there. And that is, well, maybe we'll start here. A human being, no matter who they are, has a finite amount of energy, right? So if you're going to come to the gym, there's only so much gas in the tank.
Right.
So where are you going to put your energy? Are you going to do a strength piece first? Is that what you really care about? Or are you going to do a conditioning piece first? Do we care about getting really strong, or do we care about our capacity to move oxygen around, our aerobic capacity? So from there is born two ideas. We have strength-based programming. That's my energy is going to get put into lifting heavy things. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have conditioning bias programming. I care about how well or how fast I can move. That's where my energy is. Obviously, I'm going to do some cocktail of both. I have to. That's what movement is. Yeah. But what basket am I putting my eggs into? Yeah. I think what we've done really well in this hybrid model is do both.
Right.
Some days our emphasis is heavy weights and the conditioning is compromised as a result. Sometimes the conditioning is really where our energy is and the weightlifting gets compromised as a result. So the answer is, do you do lifting or is it a cardio class? The answer is yes. It has to be both, but it sits squarely in this narrative. And I think that's the only way that you can strike the balance, is to program a balance.
Yeah.
The thing, though, that doesn't get me a lot of friends and has me convincing a lot of people is the fact that I think people care too much about lifting weights and not enough about conditioning.
Right. Well,
And I recognize conditioning is harder, and I recognize that this is going to be predictable, right? Like the skinny guy wants me to run more. Sure, I know that's a big shocker, but here's the thing. I've found that the biggest differential, the thing that people really need that's going to make them better at life, the thing that's going to be the least contrived thing that we can put into the gym that makes life easier is conditioning. And it's not that I want you to be able to get up a flight of stairs when the elevator is broken faster, or maybe not sweat through your t-shirt when you get to the 5th landing. What I care about is your capacity to recover.
Right.
So your conditioning, your capacity, your body's ability to move or to use oxygen and move it around your body, that's not just how fast can you run a mile. It's how much of a big day can you take, go to bed, and wake up feeling good. That's the ultimate and the greatest consequence of good conditioning. Yeah. So the way that I always try to sort of pitch it to our members or help them maybe stomach the reality that I'm going to make them run 30-minute intervals or something like horrible like that they know is going to be hard, is the idea that it's not just conditioning for conditioning's sake. It's conditioning to make you an athlete that can recover better and ultimately a more formidable individual that can recover from life.
Exactly. Recover from life. Now,
you see me take it all the way back.
Yeah, I saw that. That was great. So basically, it's like, I draw the analogy of like, I come into work, I find someone vandalizing our car park, I chase them off the property.
Of course you do.
I come back, I recover quickly, I can still teach a class, no problem.
Shake it off.
I recovered from life.
Right, but we've also done enough strength and hypertrophy work that you once you find this guy, he sees what you look like with your cut-off t-shirt, and clearly the wallet goes right back into your pocket. No problem. Done.
Now, one of the most important things is that we maintain a good amount of muscle tissue on our skeleton as we grow older. It's gonna, keep us metabolically healthy. It's gonna keep our structure strong, our posture strong as we age. Where does that fit into this, this conditioning bias that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So maybe we define where there's what conditions led to lots of gyms doing strength bias programming. Maybe we sort of rewind the clock here and we think about going back to CrossFit for a second. Early days, Greg Glassman let his memory. Anyway, he's had a very complicated PR year. Greg Glassman, for whatever complicated opinions he might have and strong personal work he might have to do on his own end, was a pretty smart guy. He decided that he was going to basically program for competitive athletes and then scale everything back therein, so that basically the variation that might exist between somebody who was like a D1 athlete and your weekend warriors and your soccer moms, the variation in those workouts would vary in degree, not in kind. Everybody would back squat, but it would be a slightly different format, and obviously different weights. Everybody was going to do rowing intervals, but they're going to look a little bit differently. The point here is that everybody's going to back squat and everybody's going to do rowing intervals. The exercise that I need and that my 91-year-old grandfather needs, they're basically the same. We're just along a sort of gradient. But that meant that there was a lot of workouts that we thought that people needed to be doing that they couldn't do. They couldn't lift the barbells because they were too heavy. They couldn't do the gymnastics movements. And so that we started doing all of this strength work at the beginning to get people stronger, because we wanted them to do the workouts the way the athletes were doing the workouts, which is a cool idea in theory, right? We want everybody to get really jacked. People got excited. They wanted to throw around barbells. It's fun, right? But what's really the merit of that? Do we really need to get people really strong? And I think the answer is yes, to a degree.
Right.
I think that we need to be strong enough, like you said, to be able to age gracefully, to be able to still have function deep into our 90s, right? Like you still want to be able to play soccer with your grandkids and chase the blondes around the golf course. But do you still need to be able to bench 315 in your 60s? I think no. I think you just need to have enough to be, frankly, just robust enough to resist injury. So that when you take a spill, maybe your dog yanks on the leash, I want to have enough shoulder muscles on your frame that doesn't make you rip a rotator cuff. You just go, oh, ouch, and then you go on with the walk.
I do think there is something in, when you're programming for pure strength and you're programming in that like 80 to 100% range.
Sure.
I'm trying to just get purely stronger. I'm not really concerned so much with building muscle mass. That's what dominates like CrossFit programming, right? Because the goal is to get stronger, get more powerful, not necessarily get bigger. Now the hybrid program, because we are like obviously outside because of COVID, we haven't got like heavy barbell stuff like that. We're using dumbbells, lighter weights.
Being resourceful.
Obviously, the rep scheme goes up and the weight comes down. So now you're in that, more hypertrophic rep scheme, reps and set scheme, which is kind of like what the build program always was. And I would probably argue that for most people with what we're talking about, that probably is a more useful rep and set scheme to be in. Because to most people, again, holding onto muscle mass and building muscle tissue is at a certain point more valuable than pure strength. Because it kind of like gives you some strength, it gives you some muscle tissue, and it doesn't present a lot of risk. Whereas, of course, heavy lifting will be great for your central nervous system, great to a certain degree for your
but the risk is high, right?
The risk is higher.
The incidence of injury goes up, and maybe the reality that we also need to consider is that the quantity of really heavy weights that a person is going to encounter in their life outside of the gym are probably pretty low.
Right.
We probably just need to get our members very good at picking up the heaviest, biggest bag of dog food, right?
Right.
Which is what? Maybe 60 pounds?
Yeah.
Cool. So maybe you don't need to be able to throw our 150-pound D-balls around like they're a paper clip. We just have to get really good at the 60-pound one.
Right. So let's talk about dream scenario. We can open 2021. We're back to Pharos at full capacity. So at the point of closing, I believe we had 12 or 13 programs running concurrently. We will have something similar moving forward. This hybrid program that we've had going throughout COVID will continue in some fashion. Where do you kind of see all of these things fitting together? We'll bring back our Compete, obviously, which is our CrossFit-esque program. So we'll have our CrossFit, we'll have our build, our hybrid, all those things going on. Where do you see all these things fitting together, and who would you send to which kind of class? Would you take our 50-year-old member who just wants to get fit and say, you know what, you probably should come to Compete? Or would you say, this one isn't for you, let's stick to hybrid? Or do you think there is a place for all of these people across all these programs to some degree if we scale and if we do all these things?
Yeah, what a great question. The thing that I fell in love with at Pharos from the very beginning was that there was sort of a place for everybody.
Yeah.
So what I love about the multiplicity of programs is that whatever background you might have and whatever your intention might be going forward, there's a little niche for you. That being said, everybody is welcome everywhere. And I don't mean that as a cop-out answer, but I mean that the folks that are really interested in doing a muscle-up and they've never really seen a pair of gymnastics rings before in real life have come to the right place.
Yes.
This is the place where you will learn. This is movement school. I get so excited about that.
Yeah.
All I want to do is teach a muscle up to somebody that wants to do a muscle up. I'm not interested in twisting anybody's arm to do that kind of stuff, right? Like I get really inspired by the people that are inspired to move.
Right.
So I guess my short answer is I hope that person tests broadly, experiments extensively, and finds the things that they love to do.
Yes.
Because likely we will have programmed enough variety into each one of those 12 or 13 discrete programs to capture the whole gamut of conditioning biased or strength biased. We will have built them to be robust and standalone enough as they are.
Yeah.
To be able to just take one. But if they want to try it all out and see what fits best for them and gets them excited to come to Pharos, fantastic.
Because that's really key. It's the best program for you is the one that makes you show up day in, day out. Because the moment you get bored, the moment you're not enjoying it anymore, the moment you're like lying in bed thinking, oh, got to go to the gym.
Sure.
Like it's kind of over.
Even beyond anecdotally, there's been exercise physiology data that's shown us that one of the greatest indicators of athletic performance, even at the highest ends of competitiveness, is how good an athlete feels about their training.
Right.
That means even at the Olympics, like we can tell whether Usain Bolt is going to set a world record or not based just on how excited he is to lace up his spikes. You have to love it. Otherwise, frankly, you just won't do it. And that's not a commentary on your particular moral constitution. Mm-hmm. That just means you're a human being. Nobody will do things they don't like to do. If you love it, you'll make time for it. If you love it, you will do it every day.
Yeah. I mean, I was having this conversation earlier with a couple of friends, and I'm saying, like, I know that I kind of, like, look best and probably, like, perform best if I'm doing like bodybuilding type workouts and a ton of sprints and then some like long distance cardio type stuff. However, I cannot avoid the thrill of jumping into a CrossFit style workout with a couple of buddies and just fucking going at it.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. It's just fun. It's exciting. It gets me like pumped to like, challenge myself to compete against others.
Yeah, there's a reason this thing took off, right?
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
And every now and then, life is hard. You kind of need to let off some steam.
Right.
And why not get in a very constructive fist fight? You know what I mean?
Right. Because at a certain point, it goes beyond the science. It's a psychological thing, a desire, a need.
We need a release, and ultimately, do the fun stuff.
Do the fun stuff. Yeah. Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy. Yeah, because I guess like at the end of the day, like, and 2020 is like a prime example of this. Life is tough. Life throws you a ton of shit. But I think we have to do the things that make us happy and bring us joy and get us excited. Because those are the things that help us recover from life.
Oh, you mean like from a psychological perspective?
Psychological
So
perspective.
beyond what the programming does to make you recover physiologically, yeah, I think that's a really great point. I think that which happens at the gym is equivalently psychological, right?
Yeah.
I
think.
Yeah, and what a cool thing, right? Like that what happens at Pharos, it's good for the body, but between the ears too, it's a place where you can let off some steam. It's the place where you get the high fives and the low fives. Your friends are waiting for you. The Reo Speedwagon is playing.
It's true.
And that hopefully when the clock is off and your like t-shirt is sweaty and you're ready to go home, like it was a good day. Like we moved the needle in the right direction.
Honestly, people like write to me or they come and speak to me all the time, and they they love the workout and all that kind of stuff. But the real thing that has made me the happiest is people coming up and saying, I needed this, thank you. Like it's been that like, these times are hard. And it's like, this is the one thing in my day that brings me any like release, joy, communion, like, all these things that like stimulate us and that we need social interaction. It's not just fitness.
Oh, completely. There's more of us than there's ever been people-wise, except we're sometimes the most alone that we've ever been, and we have no place to connect. And a place 100%. Like your guys here, there is that opportunity. Not just by getting the good stuff physically, breaking a sweat,
absolutely,
exercising, but you're saying the people.
Yeah, the longer I do this, the more I realize that it has disturbingly little to do with fitness.
It's true.
And I'm really proud of that. Like that's the thing that actually gets me out of bed in the morning at 5 a.m. to go train. Like I've realized that the training is sort of an artifact.
Right.
That being said, we care deeply and fundamentally about the training too, right? I think we obsess about it. We discuss it over and over again.
That's what this show's
turn
about.
It upside down and try to make it fun and interesting and deeply effective.
Yeah.
All the while knowing that it's really just secondary to the magic that happens when you get people together. Right.
It's a mental health operation, basically. I mean, the like you said, the physical side of it is almost like a side note. It's almost like it's an excuse. It's an excuse.
Yeah.
And it's the catalyst for, and it's the, it's the thing that enables us to improve people's mental health. It's the thing that we can offer to improve people's like life, day, etc., etc.
I think in that way, it's sort of it's a life raft.
It's a life raft, yeah.
In two very, very tangible ways. Yeah. It brings us together, especially in moments where we feel desperately far apart. And at the same time, when we really, really need to focus on metabolic health, on all of the improving all of our markers and just being formidable people, it moves the needle in the right direction too.
Yeah, and I think that's been the hardest thing. Like when gyms were not deemed an essential service, it's just so, so short-sighted. It's not really considering what gyms are or what good gyms are. It's not just about the fitness. It's a real stimulus for people that they need to get through the day and stay alive and stay vital and stay sane. So yeah, I'm very excited about continuing to be able to offer that. It's a real privilege to be able to offer that, to help people's mental health long term. and to get people excited about getting up in the morning, or if you can, we always say we want to be the best part of other people's day, and I want to continue that mission throughout 2021 as much as we can, and I'm really excited. I'm excited that you're here, obviously, Noah, because you bring a very powerful and a powerful energy, but an intellect that is both refreshing and exciting to be around.
Oh, thanks.
And obviously you're going to be a big part of the programming and the classes moving forward. So I'm really excited for 2021 to happen. As bad as 2020 has been, it has taught us a lot, and I think stuff it's going to be really useful for us in 2021.
I think though, if I can interrupt though, I think we have really big dreams for 21. I still think there's lots to do in 2020. And what I mean by that is, even from just discussing a programming perspective, the fact that we don't have this beautiful gym to have people in, the fact that we have to paint with fewer colors, if you will, when it comes to the programming, means we have to get more creative. It means that you and I look at each other on Wednesdays and are like, okay, well, what else can we do with a dumbbell that keeps people excited? It frankly makes me have to think harder about mechanics and think more deeply and about the significance of training. Like, why do we do a devil's press? What is the point? How do we construct a workout that is elegant and effective, but not overly complicated or contrived? And how do we do it knowing that we've done 19 other things that are similar? How do we make it different enough? So actually thinking about this idea of that, like, pressure is a privilege, and particularly about programming like we're discussing today, while we're still outside, I'm grateful for the opportunity to try to build really bulletproof programming. If we're just going to think about the physiological part of this life raft, I think there's a lot that we can do that's very creative, and that pushes us to be better at what we do. Yeah,
I agree. All right, we'll be there, guys. Brandon, thanks for coming in, man. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Hey. No, thanks so much, dude. That was
Pleasure's
awesome.
all mine.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back soon. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram at Pharos Echo Park. Come by and see us, 1316 Glendale Boulevard. Always good to see you guys. We are doing drop-ins outside, and we do have memberships still available. But we look forward to catching you soon. Take care, all. Bye.